Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. This is Boris Zinghausen with you. June 11th. Here are the main news stories at this moment. First of all, congratulations to everyone involved on the Day of the Ukrainian Unmanned Systems Forces, our modern, innovative, first-in-the-world separate branch of the military that fights with drones and robots. But behind every drone, behind every UAV, there are people, operators, engineers, technicians. So happy holiday to everyone involved. And you know, a few days ago, this patch of the Unmanned Systems Forces was given to me by a very good person, the commander of one of the units we helped together. And today, this patch will take its rightful place on our wall. So, once again, happy holiday to everyone involved. You are simply incredible. On the night of June 11th, the armed forces of Ukraine struck 3 bridges connecting the Kherson region with the occupied Crimea. To quote, "According to preliminary information, there is damage. Specialists are conducting inspections and clarifying the condition of the structures." Now, the traitor and loser Saldo is whining. As they say, happy Ukrainian Drone Systems Day to you, Saldo. Soon, there won't be a single bridge left there. After the strikes on the Chonhar Bridge and the bridge in Henichesk, the only route left was through Armyansk. And that's exactly where the next strike landed. 3 crossings over the North Crimean Canal in the area of Preobrazhenka and Mirny came under attack at once, as well as the road bridge towards Perekop and the bridge near the settlement of Stavki, which is right before Armyansk and in Armyansk itself. I've prepared a map here. Take a look, please. The 3 crosses near Armyansk are exactly where the strikes hit today, and the other 2 crosses show where strikes occurred over the past 3 days. So, of course, the Russians have already hastily built a pontoon crossing at Chongar, right next to the destroyed bridge. It's unlikely this will help them, because it's much easier to destroy a pontoon crossing, especially now that our forces have already zeroed in. And as they say, whoever hasn't hidden won't be able to hide anymore. So, in effect, Crimea is being completely cut off. There's only the Kerch Bridge left. That's it. The highway is under fire control. All the crossings, all the bridges are damaged. Now they'll finish them off, and that's it. It's over. Isn't that beautiful, right? Crimea turned out to be a trap for Putin, as I've already said. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's important. You can do it right now. We're fighting against Putin's propaganda, but together we'll do it much more effectively. So subscribe, and an important point, everyone who subscribes, proven fact, your hair becomes soft and silky. And in fact, we see that it's 5 bridges in 3 days. That's an excellent result. The turn hasn't come to the Crimean bridge yet, but it definitely will. And those 800,000 Russians who showed up in Crimea after the annexation will have to find some way to escape. But how will they escape? Now their only way out is through the Crimean bridge, while it's still standing. They'll drop their stuff and run. Of course, none of those 800,000, will defend the stolen land of occupied Crimea. After all, they didn't even defend their own. Remember, it's really quite amazing. When the Russians invaded Ukraine, everyone knows and remembers how they were met here. Their equipment was burned, Ukrainians took up arms, put up fierce resistance, and continued to do so. But when the armed forces of Ukraine entered the Kursk region, do you remember what happened? Nothing. That is, the Russians grabbed their belongings and ran as far from the border as they could. And why didn't they defend their land? Because they understood perfectly well that the armed forces of Ukraine had every right to enter the Kursk region. By the way, I remember that at the time the local Russian authorities in the Kursk region were even making some complaints to the Russians themselves. Like, why aren't you defending your own homes? Alauddinov was croaking something there too. By the way, where did he go? Has anyone seen him lately? Where is he? Where did Alauddinov disappear to? As for the residents of the Kursk region, what I remember well is how they would get down on their knees and record video appeals to Putin. Putin, help us, restore our homes. And I've already come across the opinion of more than one expert that the liberation of the left bank might happen according to the same scenario as the liberation of Kherson, that is, through the destruction of logistics. The Russians fled from Kherson at the time because it became impossible to hold. They understood that if our forces destroyed the bridge, they would simply be trapped in Kherson. And of course, they fled to the natural barrier, to the other side of the Dnipro River. And Surovikin, remember, made the decision back then, we need to make a difficult choice. By the way, where is Surovikin now? Has anyone seen him? In other words, the Russian southern group could end up in the same situation. More precisely, our armed forces are creating this situation for them right now by cutting off their logistics. When supplying them becomes impossible, they'll have a choice. Either retreat further into Crimea, abandoning the left bank, or simply die there without provisions, without ammunition, without fuel. But as they say, that's not all. Bridges are one thing, but no one is forgetting about the oil refineries. For the third time this year, Ukraine has struck one of the largest oil refineries in southern Russia, the Afipsky oil refinery in Krasnodar Krai, about 20 kilometers from Krasnodar, an old acquaintance of ours. Its design capacity is 7 million tons, which is almost 2.5% of all oil refining in Russia. Today, residents of Krasnodar flooded the internet with videos. Some people's hands are shaking, others are having a panic attack, a sleepless night. It's very scary, they say. This has never happened before. Oh. How? What a pity. Get used to it. You know who to thank. Moreover, they write that this is the first time something like this has happened. I will never tire of repeating, it will get even worse. But that's not all. The Afipsky oil refinery, the Slavyansky oil refinery, Slavyansk Eco, another one of our old acquaintances, is also one of the largest oil refineries in the Krasnodar region. It is located in the city of Slavyansk on Kuban. And just for a second, that's about 5 million tons of processing per year. There isn't a single intact oil refinery left in the south at all. There won't be any gasoline in southern Russia, and not just in the south, but also in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, and throughout the entire Russian Federation. Today I saw a video showing that some people have already started leaving Crimea. A woman in the video was saying, what's the point of Crimea if you can't go anywhere, if there's no gasoline, if drones are constantly flying and attacking, if for several hours a day? She felt humiliated, yes, because for several hours a day she has to scroll through this national messenger Max to catch a QR code and get a few liters of gasoline. That's the kind of quest people are facing in Crimea right now. For several days now, drones have been attacking Sevastopol, where I was born. And I hope that a couple of my crazy acquaintances, if they're still alive, who used to say that the Russians came to save us and all that stones from the sky stuff, I hope they've experienced the full range of emotions over these 3 days and 3 nights. And it's going to get even worse. It will get even worse. By the way, tomorrow, Russia celebrates Russia Day. An important detail, Ukraine hasn't given permission to celebrate anything tomorrow yet, so don't be in a hurry to celebrate. But you'll get your celebration. At the very least, I think Ukraine will definitely organize a fireworks show, maybe even a salute for the Russians. They might even hold a separate air parade. And there are hundreds of messages, hundreds. Krasnodar is being bombed. I won't survive this night. I'm scared. I'd like to remind you that Ukraine has been living like this for 5 years already, and you're just getting started. Also, are you really being bombed? No, you're not being bombed. If you want to see what real bombing looks like, open up photos of Ukrainian cities. Take a look at what Bakhmut looks like now. And to the question, by the way, why us? We're just ordinary Russians. We don't bother anyone ourselves. I'd still like to remind you that Putin himself hasn't fired a single shot or dropped a single bomb in this war. All of this was done by ordinary Russians, your acquaintances, neighbors, relatives, husbands, brothers. After all, someone did this, didn't they? Meanwhile, over at Sochi Airport, passengers are already fighting with the staff. They haven't been able to fly out for a whole day, or even longer. In general, the south of Russia is descending into chaos. And it's going to get even worse. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Today, we are continuing to raise funds for mobile command posts for our air defense forces, for the hunters of Russian Shaheds and Russian missiles. The fundraiser is for several air defense units at once, as well as for the 152nd Jaeger Brigade. The soldiers have recorded a video message for you. Please take a look.
152 бригада і підрозділ повітряних сил України та канал Бориса Тізенгаузена починають збір на 2 командні пункти, щоб збивати шахеди над нашими містами і запускати дрони-перехоплювачі. Сума чимала, але тільки разом ми можемо дати ворогу по зубам.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Let's help our air defense fighters. The link to donate is in the description of this video. There are mono, Privat, and PayPal options for those who want to help from abroad. The more mobile command posts we have, the more effectively we can shoot down aerial targets. Our fighters. If you're watching on another channel, there's always a QR code in the corner. It also leads to the donation page. And by helping our air defense forces, you are definitely saving someone's life. Thank you so much for continuing to support Ukraine and our soldiers. In St. Petersburg, Surgutneftegas gas stations have introduced restrictions on gasoline sales. In St. Petersburg? Putin, just a couple of days ago, right there in St. Petersburg, said that everything is fine, that Russia has an air defense system and Ukraine doesn't. Well, then how come? Did Flamingo missiles reach Cheboksary? Tell me. 1,000 kilometers over the territory. Of Russia, they flew. No, I'm serious. It's one thing when drones are flying. But here we're talking about a missile with a wingspan of 6 meters and a length of about 10 meters. How is that possible? A 10-meter-long steel cigar flew 1,000 kilometers over all of Russia and struck directly at the Progress plant. You know, sometimes it seems to me that when Putin says Russia has an air defense system, he forgets to clarify one important thing. Where exactly and who exactly has this air defense system? Around his residence in Valdai? I won't argue, there is one. But what about other regions? Well, I think he doesn't really care much about that. In Russia, they are preparing to raise taxes again. Some of the unpopular measures, such as additional duties on electronics, have been put on hold and will be introduced after the State Duma elections. I think that after the State Duma elections, they'll really hit Russians hard, take everything from them, strip them of everything. Well, I think that in Russia, of course, it's impossible to raise taxes endlessly, although Putin would like that, since the treasury needs to be replenished with something, and there's a huge hole there. A 6 trillion ruble deficit has formed. And now, in the Botox aquarium, someone has come up with a new idea about where to get more money. Look at what they've come up with. Putin has authorized the confiscation of property and the freezing of bank accounts of Russian citizens. Those who criticize the policies of the Russian Federation's authorities. They will freeze the assets of anyone who has discredited the so-called heroes of the special military operation. Heroes in quotation marks, of course. Anyone who criticized the special military operation or spread information that differs from the official position of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. But really, anyone could end up being targeted by this. It all depends on who interprets it and how. You know, for some reason, I have a feeling that the main lobbyists for this idea to take away property, to seize apartments, to seize the homes of those who have left, were the most miserable Russian performers and propagandists, those very same ones who are feeding at the trough. They absolutely hate other Russian performers who spoke out against the war, who left the Russian Federation. I think that Solovyov, whose villas on Lake Como have been seized, dreams of the day when Pugacheva's house or apartment will finally be taken away. Why should he be the only one to suffer after all? Overall, it all looks like the agony of the regime. And this kind of petty, spiteful revenge against dissenters. It's pure Chekist logic. If someone isn't afraid to go to prison for what they say, maybe they'll be scared of losing their apartment. Or if someone isn't afraid to pay fines, maybe they'll be scared of losing their home. Well, now these artists, informers, and propagandists have a new problem. In Moscow, the concert for Russia Day was cancelled. It was supposed to take place tomorrow on Red Square, where Aklobistin was probably going to shout Goida. Putin was supposed to howl, Checharina was supposed to be there, all salty, staring off into space. Basically, this whole gang of weirdos was supposed to get high there once again. They were supposed to perform on stage tomorrow, but the concert was cancelled. They had also planned for Shaman, the singer-shaman, also known as Mizulin, Nadezhda Babkina, Larisa Dolina, and other cronies to participate. Officially, the reasons for the postponement are not being disclosed. Well, really, what could the reasons possibly be? I have no idea. By the way, for the first time in 23 years, this concert for Russia Day has been cancelled. Here's another interesting decision that, in theory, should probably make Russians who still continue to fly on airplanes within Russia think twice. A decision has been made that the central bank, Russian Sberbank, and the Special Postal Service can now independently defend themselves against drones without having to coordinate with the relevant authorities. Putin signed the decree. So, first of all, it's like a new era of private armies is beginning in Russia. Secondly, it's an interesting situation, really. Putin declares war, but then it's like central bank, post office, and Sberbank, defend yourselves however you can, each on your own. And how exactly is Sberbank supposed to defend itself against drones? Well, in general, get ready, Russians. Now, anyone who feels like it will start shooting at anything that flies. Civilian airplanes, these private armies of yours will shoot them down in no time. If I were one of the remaining foreign companies still flying to Russia, I would be seriously reconsidering right now. Is it really necessary to keep flying to the Russian Federation, where literally anyone can shoot at you? An employee of Sberbank can start firing without any approval from the Ministry of Defense. And who knows with what? The Russian authorities are planning to completely eliminate all VPNs in the country. That's their plan. I don't think such a large-scale plan will work, but Roskomnadzor will purchase 154 powerful servers with top-of-the-line processors. Of course, Western ones. Well, yeah, basically, they won't be able to kill VPNs completely. I mean, it would take hundreds and hundreds of billions just to contain even this problem for them. And it's not even certain that will work. In other words, they just want to make VPNs more expensive and inconvenient. But they're hoping that most Russians will simply give up and stop using them. Stop using it. At the same time, Roskomnadzor is spending billions to create a system for monitoring and controlling traffic. Basically, old man Kabayev has completely lost it. He's gone off the rails. I mean, I think it's clear to everyone, especially after this forum. Even many Russians have realized it. Another piece of news. If the countries and members of the CSTO decide to expel Armenia, we will be forced to take note of this decision, said Nikol Pashinyan. I just laughed at that. What about Putin? So the strawberry blockade didn't work out, did it? The CSTO is falling apart, just like the aging Lukashenko. And here, following Putin's speech at the Economic Forum, events started to accelerate. Russia has been hit by a record wave of defaults not seen in the past 10 years. Nabiulina, where are you? Nabiulina has disappeared, the head of the central bank. A record wave of defaults in 10 years, excuse me, and Nabiulina has vanished like Greta Thunberg. By the way, has anyone seen Greta lately? Where is she anyway? Maybe Nabiulina fled Russia so the economic collapse wouldn't fall on her shoulders. They didn't hang her, didn't imprison her. Over there, they easily could. They might even take your apartment. And now, our segment, Orwell couldn't have dreamed of this. For the first time in Russia, someone has been fined for criticizing the terrorists from the Taliban. So 9-year-old Igor A., his last name is not mentioned. A court in Yekaterinburg fined him 10,000 rubles under the article for inciting hatred. The reason was his comment. Igor wrote in crude language that those Taliban terrorists have no business being in Russia. He was fined for that, and Igor probably doesn't know that the Taliban have been removed from the list of terrorist organizations in Russia, and now they're Putin's new friends. They even attended the Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. The only thing is they were probably just a little bit... The Taliban representatives were a bit unhappy that they weren't allowed to fire Kalashnikovs into the ceiling and dance, but still, they were received there as is customary. All in all, Igor got off easy, after all. They could have sent him to Afghanistan for re-education by his friends in the Taliban. And one more piece of news to follow up on the cancellation of the concert on Red Square. Putin will not deliver the traditional address on the occasion of Russia Day. The official reasons for this decision have not been disclosed. And you underground coward, pardon my French, are you going to be hiding out somewhere on the minus 50th floor in Valdai? Well, at this point, there's no time for speeches. In general, yes, of course, everything is going according to plan. And at the end of the program, I have a message for the adherents of the Russian world. They've somehow become more active, coming into the comments in entire groups. Strangely enough, why are they watching me? Who knows? Well, whatever. Let them watch if they want to. From time to time, when something really gets to them, like, for example, the situation with Crimea, right now, they're really starting to lose it. The decision-making center. And they write all sorts of comments. So I have a message for them. Ukrainian propaganda, in my person, as a certified puppet of the West, keeps saying, are your fuel trucks burning on the highways over there? On the occupied territory, Ukraine is taking out Russian air defense systems? Prove that this isn't true. But if you think I'm lying, then prove that I am. Send photos of air defense systems, intact fuel trucks, preferably with coordinates so we can definitely verify it. The address is provided. In the channel description, well then, maybe we'll believe you. So don't hesitate, take photos, send them in. We're waiting, friends. But we also need to stay alert, not just these days, but especially now. The mangy mackerel will definitely want to take revenge for the record number of humiliations and the most painful blows, both at Russian factories and at oil refineries, so pay close attention to air raid alerts. Well, basically, as always, nothing changes. The terrorist continues their terrorist activities, but not quite as energetically as before. Wouldn't you agree? So, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and subscribe to this channel. And let's help our air defense warriors. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.